Buenos días. Quiero extenderles una cordial bienvenida a esta sesión del Symposio. Yo soy Michael Wood y soy el asesor legal para la Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días para el área Sudamérica Noroeste. Este área tienen los países de Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Colombia y Venezuela. Esta mañana el tema que vamos a escuchar es perspectivas de los gobiernos. Y los participantes son bien calificados para hablar sobre este tema. Sus biografías están en página 23 en el folleto.
Their bios are in page 23 of the Symposium. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say is what they're going to be doing at the present time. The first one, the first speaker, it will be the Vice Minister, Alfonso Garcés. He's the Vice Minister of Justice of the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights in Peru. Second, then we have Ministry Darío Filártiga, and he is an advisor, a politician, and to Paraguay. And third,
Asesor legal Guillermo.
we have the legal advisor, Guillermo Mendoza. He is the legal advisor of the Ministry of Defense in Paraguay. At the end of the hour, if we have time, they can answer perhaps some questions. Vice Minister.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I too would like to thank the organizers of this event for allowing me to come to talk a little bit about how religious freedom has developed in Peru and how this is being strengthened, and it is related to social development as well that goes on in our country. I'll begin by explaining a little bit about this historical development of religious freedom in Peru. And the constitutional background they have is from 1812 to 1915, when the constitutional text said that the Catholic religion was the official religion. And professing the Roman Catholic religion, and this was one of the main issues until 1915. It did not allow the public practice of any other religion. Beginning in 1915 was when the Constitution back then allowed, in the last phrase, where public practice of any other religion was prohibited. And so there are more developments in 1933 when respect for the feelings of the national majority was respected, but that religions enjoy freedom of exercise, and they're different. So in other words, in 1915 was the first break-off from the prohibition against practicing any other religion. And then in 1933, the Constitution recognized the freedom of worship in a public manner. However, it was not until 1979 when the Constitution had a further development of that religious freedom. First of all, it says that all people, all citizens, are equal before the law without any type of discrimination for religious reasons, and the freedom of conscience and freedom of religion are also recognized publicly or in private. There's no persecution based on ideas or religions, and likewise, the Constitution also allows for the free exercise of religion in public or collectively. But Article 86 also says that the state recognizes the Catholic Church as an important element in the development of the moral development of the country, and that's because most Latin American countries have an influence from the Spanish monarchy, and obviously that was what initiated this development in the country. And this is also present in the current Constitution. It was just modified in terms of the numbers of the articles. Now, currently, and everything that I just mentioned, not only is this something that came out of the Peruvians' own free will, but it also comes with recognition of international treaties that Peru is a signatory to. And that is where, well, it establishes a division between the state and religion, but where they work together. And this international legal framework begins with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to which Peru became a signatory in 1959, and which says that this right to the freedom of religion also includes the ability to change religion, to freedom of belief, whether in public or in private, and to be able to exercise one's own religion. Then we have the International Pact of Civil Rights, to which Peru signed, which says that the freedom of thought and conscience and religion is established, and which includes choosing one's preferred religion and to change religion if one would like to do so. It also says that the states that are signatories to that pact, they respect the rights of parents to choose the religious and moral education of the children according to their own convictions. And there's also a resolution which was submitted to the General Assembly of the United Nations, and which strengthens this type of religious freedom. In Peru, we have the patronage, which came about around 1980, and Peru signed a concordat with the Vatican, which establishes certain agreements between Peru and the Vatican, and that is still current. And from an international, according to the national legal framework, we have the Constitution of 1993, which I already explained in the beginning, which recognizes freedom of religion and the freedom not to be discriminated or persecuted based on one's beliefs, as long as it is not a detriment to public order and public morals. There are also other legal frameworks that seek certain benefits to religious entities, such as the Act 774, the Revenue Act, and also the Customs Act, and that has to do with the donations that come from abroad. With regard to taxes, these religious entities will be exempt from taxes. The same also applies to the Municipal Tax Act. There's the Property Tax Act, which has to do with real estate and has to do with transferring property rights, as well as the automobile tax. And when it comes to religious property, they are exempt from that as long as it has to do with temples, churches, monasteries, convents, and museums. In the case of the religious entities that acquire a piece of property for those purposes will be exempt from the tax as well, and the same applies to vehicles that belong to religious entities. In the case of the Customs Act, which has to do with donations, that the same applies to the Act to facilitate merchandise that comes from abroad for goods that are imported by a specific church for its own purposes. And so in 2010, within the whole historical development in Peru, was when Act 29365, the Freedom of Religion Act, was promulgated, which basically develops further what is in the Constitution, that the state guarantees the fundamental right of all people to have freedom of religion, recognizing this is recognized by the Peruvian Constitution and by international treaties. It ratifies that the public exercise of religion is free, and the only limit is the protection of the rights of others in the exercise of their fundamental rights. Although this was already allowed in Peru and also recognized at a constitutional level, the rights of all religious entities and all people in general to select their own religion or practice a religion in public or as a group. In 2010, this law was passed to reinforce what had already been happening in a de facto manner, and which was already set forth in treaties and in the constitutions. And like I mentioned, there's also the equality of treatment, and any action or omission that discriminates against anyone for their religious beliefs is also prohibited. And this is the definition of religious entity in Peru, which is that churches and religious communities that consist of natural persons who profess, practice, teach, and disseminate a specific faith. And they have their own beliefs, a moral doctrine, etc. Now, the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights has a fundamental role in the strengthening of coordination with the religious entities. Within the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights, with the joinder of these two ministries, within the Ministry of Justice, there is a administration which is called Justice and Religious Organizations, and then there are two subcategories. One has to do with the Catholic Church because of the concordant, and then there's also another administration which is interreligious. And basically what this administration does is to strengthen religious freedom, and it establishes a collaborative relationship which is a little bit more based on daily tasks in terms of the relationship between religious organizations and the state. For example, this interreligious administration also is involved with immigration because of some of the benefits that religious entities receive. And so there is a problem with people who come from outside the country and they receive a tourist visa, such as for missionaries, and others receive tourist visas. So what the ministry does through this administration is to help them obtain a separate immigration status so that they can be in the country for a more extended period, and so that they can receive the immigration papers that they need. In the last 4 years, there have been more than 27,000 approved immigration statuses in cooperation with these religious entities. And they also provide information for all the religious entities that enter the country. And yesterday we talked about the registry of religious entities, which began in 2003, began to work a little bit more starting in 2004. There were about 158 registered religious organizations, 143 religious organizations, 14 missionary religious entities. And so it is basically divided into a main section where the religious organizations themselves are, and then a special one where the missionary entities are categorized. And here we can see how this is broken down, these different religions that are registered. Most of them are evangelical Christians, given that they have a structure that is hierarchical, they don't have a structured or hierarchical structure, but each of them has their own structure. Now, what is the role, or why are the religious organizations important, and what is their role in our country, and why is it also important to continue to strengthen the topic of religious freedom? First of all, religion, well, it is easier to govern a country that has a specific set of guidelines, and that allows each person to develop as best he or she can. And then secondly, this principle, which is common among almost all religions, is supporting one's fellow man. And for this purpose, the state establishes benefits, like I mentioned in the beginning, to strengthen this training and social service training that come into the country. And examples of that is the Swiss mission in Peru, located in Pulcapa, one of the provinces located in the Amazon jungle in Peru. They have been there in Peru for almost 48 years. They have been increasing literacy. The jungle is a multicultural area. They have microcultures, many different languages. And so it is exactly these religious organizations and missionaries that go to these areas to provide assistance to the people who live there. And in this case, this particular mission, what it does is that it helps people improve their technical skills in certain areas where they can. Then there's also the South American Mission, or the SAM mission, which is a Christian community where they have. They provide transportation for people to be able to see. In many parts of the jungle, in the Amazon jungle, there are many areas where there's no commercial airline, where there are no commercial airline service, and so they have small planes that cover that part of the country, and they work together to provide transportation. They have Bible groups and literacy centers. Then there's also the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or ASPERSUD, the official name in Peru, and they provide donation. They donate wheelchairs and blood and other things. And so in Peru, The topic of religious freedom has developed progressively over an extended period of time. This year is the 100th anniversary since the prohibition against publicly professing other religions than the Catholic religion was abolished. And I believe it's in November when the anniversary takes place. And this strengthening which has taken place and the strengthening that we see today allows for religious groups to work together with the state and vice versa for the purpose of increasing social inclusion in the country, which is one of the policies of the current administration in our country. And this allows the general population or the community to develop further. I think I'm still within the allotted time, but so basically, those are the two main ideas that I wanted to give you, that in Peru, all the laws can be perfected. There's always room for perfection as long as we can improve things, like I just explained, as long as we develop progressively and not regressively. And that is so we're going in the right direction in order for the religious groups to fulfill their purposes. Thank you very much.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Greetings, and I thank all of the people that organized this symposium that gives us the opportunity to be with different people from the world. I'm also grateful to, I'm so grateful to BYU, the University of Utah, for having us as a home guest. Like you say, I'm from Paraguay. Paraguay is in the heart of Latin America. I like to say that it is a small country, but it is compared to its great neighbors, Brazil and Argentina. But like our president used to say, Paraguay is bigger than Germany. And Germany has 84 million people, and in our country we're only 7 million. So there is a lot to develop in Paraguay. Well, the conquer. I wanna talk a little bit about this, about the conquer happened under God's mercy and under the Spaniards monarchs, and it's a treaty between Spain and the priest. They were the ones in charge of the expeditions, and it is said that in a poetic way sometimes it was done with the sword and the cross. In that time there is the influence and the Christianism comes in how we form our nationalities. In Paraguay, there has been an experience that is transcendent, that it was the Jesuits' missions. They were established in Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. And in these missions, the priests they will call upon and they will doctrine the origins of the Catholic beliefs. At one point, that with the permission of the Spaniard government, they established themselves and they started going with vocations such as technical vocation with the indigenous people and also in the schools. This was for a long period of time until it got to a point that the politics started to intervene, and then Spain also started to intervene, and these particular missions, they were taken away from Paraguay. Until this day, we have in Paraguay, we have the Jesuits ruins, which is pretty much something that is belong to us. Paraguay, it's a country homogeneous, and also I heard my partner here, but Paraguay is a homogeneous country, and in our country we call something Guarani, which is the union of a family of the conquistador with the daughters of the chiefs, the Indian chiefs. And in Paraguay has a very own nation, and also I, and then we have this particular mind. We're in this particular mind structure, and then the teaching of the religion was more peaceful, more effective in the entire country. When it comes to the topic that we're talking about, to the freedom of religion, social stability, and the human rights, Paraguay in these days, in these years, our religion is commemorating 200 years of the emancipation of the different nations. I mean, in this case, will be Spain for us. Now, in the independence evolution, there was some priests from Uruguay, from Paraguay, and at the beginning of our independence, all the activities, official activities, let's say, in politics, all the activities, including for the elections, they used to be done in the temples. In the temples, they used to come from the colonies and Catholic Church. In Paraguay, there was a period that it was governed by José García from France, and he was part on the University of Paraguay with theology, and this theology, I mean, with a new country, I mean, it needed a really strong and firm government, and then he pretty much he rejected all this. I mean, as a matter of fact, when it came to religion, the one thing that he was given the own authority to direct the church, and he pretty much told the bishops and the priests, and he would say that he would be the boss, he would be the main guy. This happened until 1840 when he passed, because his official denomination, he was a dictator of Paraguay. Then after that, a government came from Carlos Antonio Lopez, who gave us the first constitution, what is known as politic constitution, that in our history we have five. The first one was in 1844, that it will pretty much recognize the Catholic Church as the official church in the state, and did not tolerate any other worship that it wasn't part of the Catholic Church. And that's what it would say. And that obviously was modified after a year, and then the private worship, will be allowed. In 1870, there was a war. You knew that it was a war against Paraguay. It was the Triple Alliance. So he went against Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, and basically, we as male population were only at 10%, mostly little children and people from the older people. So then we started the reconstruction with the new constitution that it will declare the Catholic Church like the official recognized church from Paraguay. As a matter of fact, they were used to make something that it was called a council of the state. It was integrated by the archbishop of the Catholic Church, and it was basically by the greatest authority of the Catholic Church. Now, this constitution in 1870, from the post-war, it was under the mercy and then the reconstruction of the country, and it was available until 1940, and then it is given. it is given to Uruguay the condition of official religion that the Catholic Church was the official church in the state. The president, the country president, he will profess the Catholic Church as a requirement, essential requirement in the oath for the judicial power. So what it will do is that they will borrow them to represent the people and before God. And this constitution was in effect until 1967, in which there is another national convention, and this maintains the effect of the tolerance of worship. What happened in 1944 when there were some other type of worships, all of those have been coming along and they've been establishing everything else here and there. However, with tolerating, the different worships, in 1967 and the Constitution, and like I said, it has all the characteristics from the official church. This has a very substantial change when it comes to religion in the Constitution that we still have, that it comes from 1992. In this Constitution, it is determined very clearly that there will be no official church. And the freedom of worship is absolute. However, respecting the history of 200 years, there was an article introduced in the Constitution that recognizes the Catholic Church in the cultural formation and educational in Paraguay, because up to these days, the Catholic Church has a function of sponsoring different entities when it comes to working the land in schools, and that they may also help. So in 1992, we have a state, we have a secular state when it comes to worship. We also would like to tell you that since 1954 in Paraguay, there is a dependence in Paraguay. Now is a vice ministry of worship, which is the official entity that registers all the new worships. We have between the 70 or 88% that they profess the Catholic Church, and the other 20% it is divided among different religions that are evangelists. And I have to tell you that in Paraguay, progressively, the LDS Church is growing, structural and along with all the people who follow this religion. Also, a comment about the bishopric in Paraguay when it comes to Spain, that the religion's attendance into the military barracks, there will be a person that will be ordinary and that will be able to pretty much lead and preside in this particular matter. There was also a church that was established, that it was it belongs to the Evangelist church, and there is a leader, and he intervenes in the spiritual matter when it comes to the military and the police. Well, in order to summarize, Paraguay now it has a constitution that determines the secular state with tolerance of worship. We have no conflicts, gladly. We have no technical conflicts or religious conflicts, nor conflicts that could give us or that we can point it out that is difficult. And I'd like to make a final comment before thanking my wife, that she's always with me, and family and friends that live here in this particular city that they are present in this audience. I'd like to make a final comment when it comes to tolerance. In July of this year, Paraguay received the visit of Pope Francisco, and and he met with all the religions. There wasn't just Catholics; all the religions participated of this particular meetings of the Pope, Pope Francis. And what I would like to share with you is the Mass of the Angelus, which is the main Mass. He also prayed from the altar the patriarch from the Orthodox Church as a demonstration of pluralism and tolerance in this particular event, even though that it was presided by the Pope. But I want to say thank you, and if you have any questions, please, and with respect with everyone here, I wanted to be brief. And once again, and thank you very much.
Okay. Muchas gracias, Dr. Michael Wood.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Wood. And to those of you who are here, I would like to talk to you about the current religious freedom in the Republic of Paraguay. First of all, I'd like to thank the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for this opportunity to talk to all of you about religious freedom in my country. It is very important to know how it all began. For those of you who don't know this, Paraguay is located in the southern part of South America. It is a country that is located strategically and consists of 17 departments and the capital city of Asunción. And we cover an area of 406,000 square kilometers, and we have 7 million inhabitants. It's a multicultural and multilingual country with 2 official languages, Spanish and Guarani. Within the political legal framework, the Republic of Paraguay does not have a religious freedom law, but in the Article 24 of the Constitution, which is about religious freedom, it says that religious freedom, the religious freedom of worship is recognized. No religious group shall have official status, and the relationship between the state and the Catholic Church is based on interdependency and autonomy, and the autonomy of churches and religious groups is also recognized without any other limitations of law. No one shall be molested, interrogated, or obligated to declare because of their religious beliefs. So it's very clear. The Paraguayan Constitution establishes that there is religious freedom to practice religion. Most Paraguayans consider themselves Catholic. According to the most recent census, Catholics make up 80% of the population. Protestant denominations, the ones that are most activist in the country, are the minorities, followed by other Christian groups such as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others. In Paraguay, there's hardly any discrimination based on religion, if at all, and there are also very few legal restrictions in terms of religious acts. The Constitution and its laws protect the rights of individuals to select and change and freely practice their religion, and there are laws that prohibit discrimination on that basis. And the Constitution also recognizes the important role of the Catholic Church, even though the government is secular in name and in practice. Most government representatives are Catholic, and occasionally members of the Catholic Church clergy also speak in government settings. The Constitution allows for political parties to be established based on religious beliefs. The President and Vice President and members of Congress are secular. In Paraguay, we have a law from 1975 which sets forth military service, and Article 48 clearly says that citizens are exempt from doing military service in Paraguay. We have extensive chaplain service in the military, but later on the armed forces also opened up to other religions. Even though the government does not impose restrictions on religious publications, such publications are subject to the law against slander. You have to recognize that throughout the world, religious freedom is declared as a universal right, which is backed up by the legal framework or laws that govern society as a whole, man, and also protect man as the main protagonist. And it is also important to point out that, as Professor Mustafa said yesterday, true religion builds bridges, creates stability between communities. With religious freedom, we get good citizens. And I would also like to quote my friend, Professor Alfonso Santiago, who yesterday said that an important value is the contribution that believers give to society. And this is what is important. We live in constant acknowledgement of different religions because of globalization. The practice of religious leaders have to do with political aspects and give certain benefits that end they're political practices that are based on the Bible in order to set forth their arguments, in order to get greater credibility. Now, the question that all we Paraguayans ask ourselves is, do we really have religious freedom in Paraguay? If religious freedom is true respect for the beliefs of others without any discrimination or exclusion or anyone trying to impose a different way of thinking, then we can conclude that we do have religious freedom in Paraguay. It is an inherent principle for all Paraguayan citizens. The decision whether or not to join a particular religion, to disseminate it in private and in public in the appropriate forums, freedom of parents to raise their children according to their own religious convictions, that they inspire their own lives, as well as the right to attend public schools without having to suffer any discrimination there. In the community, we have the freedom to select our own religious leaders and to have centers for moral and religious instruction, and also the freedom to publish public books that are also religious in nature, and also the freedom to provide welfare services. We are capable of carrying this out, and so therefore we can conclude that there is freedom of worship and religion in Paraguay. Now, what are the objectives? Like Elder Reuben said yesterday from Brigham, from BYU, referring to the university, he says that students are the crowning
Y podemos decir,
or the crown to all of this. And so we can say that the Religious Freedom Act
corona culminante de esto.
would be the final crown to all of this.
Seguir promoviendo la tolerancia religiosa.
Continuing to promote religious tolerance and the understanding of a society, this goal might be reached if
Y son imparciales.
all are taught, and this is done in an impartial way, and to support dialogue and mutual respect between different communities, promoting
Que incluyan en sus programas educativos
in
el respeto por las
schools
personas y por la fe.
respect toward others and toward faith.
Desafíos como nación.
Challenges as a
La
nation.
religión nos necesita activos
Religions need
en la elaboración y ejecución de proyectos.
assets in order to carry out projects for the good of the community,
Esta actividad debe
and that these activities
bien organizados.
need to be very well organized.
No quisiera concluir sin antes tocar un tema
And to conclude, I would like to mention a topic that I consider highly important for us South
que no se
Americans.
vayan después y que no termine este simposio sin que
And hopefully this symposium will not end without
en su muy buena exposición ayer el
with the wrong message. Brother Professor Marco Ventura mentioned something yesterday in his speech. He said that when a nation, and particularly in a religion,
una amenaza
when there's a
religiones minoritarias.
when there's a threat against minority religions, and sincerely, I don't agree with that.
Lo referente a Sudamérica,
With regard to South America and Paraguay,
si en Sudamérica y en
if in South America and in our countries we have 60, 70,
80%
and even 80%
supremacía de una religión,
who belong to a religious majority, then, and I repeat, then there is
tipo de amenaza,
no type of threat against minority religions.
por lo tanto, la
Therefore,
libertad religiosa
religious
debe entenderse
freedom
como el respeto de la
must be
dignidad más
understood
profunda de
as
todo ser humano,
respect toward the
que se
most,
suscribe a su propia
the deepest
creencia
dignity
y
of
por lo consiguiente
humans and their own beliefs. And so this must work in harmony with any type of society.
debemos trabajar
We must work
para la convivencia pacífica en la que debe
toward
prevalecer el
peaceful
diálogo amistoso,
coexistence where there can be friendly dialogue and
fomentando
respect,
una cultura de paz.
thereby fostering a culture of peace, because
Debe ser humana.
there must be a human trend and not a political religious trend.
El obispo Staldet
Bishop Stolzed said yesterday
nos bendiga
that may
con
God
ira
bless
ante la
us
injusticia. Y me gustaría agregar algo más.
with eagerness toward justice. And I would like to say, may God bless all of us, and may God bless my home country. Thank you very much.
Bueno, tenemos unos minutos para preguntas.
We have just a few minutes for questions. If you have questions, please raise your hands and use the microphone. And
Que alguien específico
and if you want someone specific to answer, let's make sure that it's been said. My name is Cesar Zúñiga, and I would like to ask, I'm from Costa Rica, I would like to ask Alfonso Garcés
A cualquiera de los dos representantes.
and any of the other two representatives from Paraguay, as far as the reflection that Professor Cole Duran in relation with the conflicts between secularism and the religions. Let's see in Costa Rica, for example, and I think that that's probably the case in Paraguay, there is no great or small conflicts among the religions, but it's been generated a conflict between secularism as in the other confessions religious. For example, yesterday we used to say the secularism, they used to call us cavemans because we're opposed to same-gender marriage and the abortion. I would like to know in your countries what is happening in between those two things. Thank you.
Bueno, gracias por la pregunta.
Thank you for the question. In Peru,
Que en Paraguay no existen
almost just like in Paraguay, there is currently no conflict between religious groups.
bastante tolerancia
There's plenty of tolerance amongst them.
antes sí.
Now, in the past, before the 1915 Constitution came out, and in fact that was where religious freedom was born, because since it was prohibited to practice any faith other than the Catholic faith in public,
Capturaron a un
they
cristianos vendiendo Biblia
arrested a group of Christians that were selling or handing out Bibles,
para que hubo una serie de protestas.
and that was what led to a series of protests, and that gave way to the 1915 Constitution. But then, as it has been,
Marco legal y también
as the legal framework and also the people and the way they understand things have been developing with regard to respect and tolerance toward other people, not only with regard to religion, but also people who simply think differently.
cuando se ha debatido en el Perú
So recently, when there's been talk in Peru about legal bills with regard to abortion in cases of rape or civil unions between same-sex couples,
no han habido reacciones
there have not been any
a grupos religiosos específicos
reactions from any particular
que nos comentaban
religious groups in the sense that that was discussed yesterday.
pero o sea, hacen notar, protestan,
I mean, there are
hacen
protests, and they express their own points of view, but not from any particular religious group in particular.
Bueno, quiero agregar que en Paraguay
Well, in Paraguay also, there is not a particular talk, I mean, that is formulated there in Costa Rica. What I would like to share with you is an event
tuvo lugar en mi país.
that took place in my country, that it was the pregnancy of a 10-year-old girl.
Entonces, la gran discusión
So the great discussion that the entire society and the Catholic Church and the human rights, there was a great discussion if the abortion should happen in that particular case. Happily,
estableció la idea de
so the idea was maintained that the pregnancy should continue, and it wasn't just one life, but there were two. So the little girl gave birth. At this time, the baby probably is a month or two. That was an event that caused a lot of commotion into society, and it brought up a big discussion that at the end, I mean, there was a lot of talk in the churches, universities, schools, and like any other country, we live in a country that is well connected. Like any other parts in the world, you know, everything goes quickly, such as the same gender marriage. When someone gets killed, I mean, and it has been resolved in different latitudes, but within the framework, I mean, there were no conflicts that way.
Sí, ahora sí. Mi nombre es Rafael Gutiérrez.
My name is Rafael Gutierrez from the Caribbean area of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from the Dominican Republic. My answer and my question is for Alfonso Garcés. In your presentation, Mr. Vice Minister, you said that the Religious Act in Peru includes the parental prerogative of determining the children's upbringing and education in accordance with their own religious traditions. And so I would like to know if you've had any case, and how, in such case, how have you handled it in terms of sexual and reproductive education, especially in countries that are signatories to international treaties, such as in the United States, where there was sex education and reproductive health, which is taught in schools. There are times when the content that is promoted by the international organizations might be in conflict with some of the spiritual or religious beliefs or traditions of families. And in fact, in the area that I work in, there have been countries where there are conflicts in the sense of usually the directors of those organizations are more liberal than what is tolerated by religions. And so how have you handled that in terms of the curriculum, and have you handled these types of conflicts between general interest and the interest of the family in terms of these types of teen pregnancy cases?
Well, speaking in general, it doesn't exist a lot of cases in which people have questioned or that it is affecting indirectly the right to the freedom of religion, or that it might be affecting perhaps a principle in their faith and doctrine, etc. We have cases, isolated cases, not like the cases that you're talking about, but for example, we had a case of someone who claimed, and he went up to the higher court, that there should be a Bible and a crucifix, and at the time that they were going to declare something or confess something, what was the faith that they profess. So he came to the higher courts. So the Bible and the crucifix, it was told that it wasn't. If he wasn't obligated to believe, to worship those particular type of symbols, there was nothing that was affecting to whatever religion they might be professing. However, in relation that if you were to ask in front of a courthouse, what religion do you profess? So as they go through all this and they're trying to determine, if someone had committed a crime and the profession of such religion has nothing to do with this, then that particular area is not constitutional. Why? Because that was taken out of a questioning from an attorney or from anyone. But we have not known of an incident that someone perhaps, at school have a question, something to do with the sexuality, or a parent that had come and say, hey, that has affected the doctrine, the profession, the faith or anything like that. So I couldn't answer you any further on that. Well, we have a time just for two questions, maybe a comment at the end with respect to the situation in South America, and for example, the Catholic Church being the main church. I think that as a representative of a church that is a minority in South America, what I have observed is that I have seen a social change in the past 50 years. 50 years ago, or maybe more, 100% of the people were Catholic. And in the last decades, we have seen changes, like in Central America, it's 50% of the people are not Catholic, and this change has been very peaceful without any problems. I think that we all need to be grateful to the Catholic Church and to the South American countries that they are an example to the world in how we can have a pluralism in religion, and these changes that happen in an environment of peace.
Es así mismo, doctor.
Well, historically, like the Vice Minister said, there were many problems for religious reasons, but nowadays we are practically not having any of those in South America, and that declaration was simply because those who are not familiar with the situation in South America, we don't want them to go away with this globalized idea of how things are globalized, because it's different in South America.
Bueno, les agradezco mucho las exposiciones.
Well, thank you for all of what you have presented. More than a question, I would like to make a comment or a contribution for the question of Rafael, and that is that the formulas, especially the Treaty of San Jose of Costa Rica, it says that the right of the parents of their children that they receive education according to their beliefs. So I'm going to underline the verb to receive. It doesn't say that the parents should give them, just because the sectors that would like to improve, pushing the religion or perhaps, pressing on certain contexts in the educational area, they would like to interpret that the right of the parents is to give them the education according to their convictions, and then they encircle them in the home or perhaps in the churches. What the texts are saying is that they should receive, so the parents have the right to ask for their children to receive, not to give them out of the home something that goes or is contrary to what the parents are saying.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Quiero que se unan conmigo para agradecer.
I'd like you to join me in thanking our speakers.